Hello, I am Jaime Elizondo from Real Wealth Ranching, where our goal is to help you maximize your profitability while you improve your land as quickly as possible. Today's podcast is about the 3 points or important things to do so as not to run out of grass thanks to total grazing. Welcome back to another episode of the Fat Cows, Fat Wallet podcast. I hope you are having a great week, and today we're going to talk about something that is so important, reducing the risk of not having enough grass thanks to using total grazing. Today, I am going to talk to you about what we must do to always have enough grass for our cattle, the importance of using deferred forage in the area, the type of grazing that we must use to avoid overgrazing, as this is extremely important to achieve profitability and harmony in our lives. Fortunately, it is also what the land pasture cattle complex needs to regenerate the environment for greater productivity. Much has been said that it is better to only harvest 1/3 and sometimes half of the grass on offer. But where did this come from? Well, from an experiment done in 1955, that's 67 years ago, when grazing in the United States was continuous and selective. Under those conditions, they concluded that only half of the available forage should be grazed, and the animal load should be reduced if they started consuming more. If you are one of my total grazing students, or if you have been following me for a while, you know that stocking rate is what mainly determines the profitability of a farm or a ranch. So that old recommendation does not help this time around. Today, I am going to show you the 3 very important points to not run out of grass, even at very high stocking rates, even when you have a drought, and all this without the use of expensive and or chemical inputs. Many times I have been asked, how is it possible that a more efficient harvest of the available forage as we do in total grazing program, 85 to 90% harvest efficiency? How does that help the plants, the soil, and the animals? Well, the answer is simple. By doing total grazing, we completely avoid overgrazing. What? They tell me, is precisely overgrazing is leaving the land bare. And that is exactly what I want to talk to you about today. Overgrazing occurs when a plant is regrazed before it has fully recovered from the previous grazing. It has nothing to do with how severe the grazing was, but it has to do with how quickly the herd returns to regraze it. I have learned over 30 years of experience that this is true, and I want to share it with you. Please pay close attention and listen with an open mind, as what I am about to tell you is consistent with your own observations in the field. It is going to be different than what you have been told in the past. But if you think about it carefully and relate it to your observations in your daily work, you will agree. Now, if you know someone who could benefit from this podcast, please share it or give them the link, because I know I can help them increase their productivity and regenerate the land by avoiding overgrazing, even at the very high stocking rates that we need today and at a very low cost. So here they are. Number 1, stop overgrazing. Under selective rotational grazing, the first field grazed will be regrazed too early when growth rate slows down. This means that the plants in that paddock have not fully recovered when they are again grazed. And that is the main reason the roots of our best species are weakened. And in the event of a contingency, frost or drought, they die and are replaced by less valuable species or bushes and thorns. In other cases, in drier areas, this leads to desertification, lack of plants, and bare soil. On the other hand, with total grazing, precisely because of a greater harvest efficiency, we obtain more cow days or ewe days or goat days per acre, which is the same as saying that the herd or mob or flock advances more slowly and allows us longer rest times to come back, and this is what prevents overgrazing. Would you like to have more productive animals per farm? Stop selective rotational grazing and implement the full grazing program. It will greatly increase your profitability. 2, defer forage in fields or paddocks. To have a reserve of standing hay of the best possible quality, it is necessary to defer fields or paddocks in area. Not as many recommend that the deferred forage through the farm is the residue or rejected forage of the previous grazing, and they call that standing hay. That's not true. There is no worse quality forage for your livestock than previously rejected grass. This is very easy to observe. What's left will be the worst species and the stems of the best species because they have gleaned all the leaves off. And while the leaves have a very high digestibility and energy content and protein, the stems do not. And they have other problems that I have already explained in the previous podcast. So those who have believed that their standing hay is the forage rejected after selective grazing have had to pay the high price of seeing their cattle weaken and thin, getting thin in the dry season. And that is one of the recommendations that has done the most damage to ranchers. On the other hand, when a field or paddock is left without grazing, so to use it as standing hay in the difficult season, its quality will be much higher because the leaves were not stripped off in the previous grazing. This also allows those deferred plants to go deeper with their fat and strong roots, which will increase the fertility of your land and the vigor of the regrowth. 3, have a short and correct calving season in place and have it happen when there is an abundance of green grass. This is very easy to understand, but few people put it into practice. If we look at the feed needs of a dry cow or a dry female compared to a calving cow that is milking, we see that the cow that is milking needs twice as much nutrients as the dry cow. How does this impact? Well, if we have our females giving birth in the difficult season when there is not enough grass, the grass will not be enough for all of them. That means a lower stocking rate. Well, it is easier for them to calve at their time of abundance, as all species do in nature. Just observe nature. I don't say that you should breed at the same time that the deer are in rut. No, because they have different gestation length, of course. But we want them to, our livestock babies, to be born when there is an abundance of green grass. As we already know, the profitability of a farm is determined by the number of productive animals that we can maintain at a low cost per year. So this is self-explanatory. With only this simple move or step of a short and correct calving season, the stocking rate can be increased by 30 to 40% in your ranch. How much does this impact profitability? Well, a big way, because there's no extra cost. You don't have to feed so much hay because they're consuming green grass and you have a lot of it. Remember, going against nature is expensive, as she has much deeper pockets than we do. Now, let me tell you, when I bought my first farm, I immediately implemented a short and correct breeding season. That was in 1991, and I achieved very good results in reconception, while those who didn't had to pay the cost of having to sell animals in the dry season, as they were calving a little before the dry season came in earnest. So they were in poor body condition. We must be aware that in nature and in ranching and farming, the effects of a decision are additive and have repercussions for years and years. That female that gave birth in the difficult season, when there is no excess of green grass, is going to lose weight. And we must remember that body fat is necessary to form estrogen, and estrogen, the female hormone, is necessary for the female to cycle. And it is necessary for the female to cycle to be served and become pregnant. Now, knowing this, we cannot blame our females, since the one who decides how long the bull or ram or baby is with them and when is us. On my own farm, I have seen how these three simple points have allowed me to achieve profitability every year for the last 25 years. Some years higher profitability, some years lower, depending on the market, but always profitable. Would you like to be able to say the same thing 10, 20 years from now? If you want to, implement the full grazing program as soon as possible. Sometimes we forget that the cattle farm is a business, and like every business, it must make money. And like in every business or enterprise, future production is important. By implementing these three steps, you can be sure of always having enough grass for a much higher number of animals. In summary, in conclusion, in order not to run out of grass thanks to implementing total grazing, these are the steps or things you have to consider. 1, stop overgrazing. That is, stop weakening the roots of your best species with selective grazing, where your livestock will consume the most desirable species and the best parts of them, leaving behind the less desirable plants and parts of those plants. By doing this, you will not only obtain greater harvest efficiency, but you will also obtain greater productivity at a lower cost by avoiding overgrazing. 2, defer your standing hay in fields or paddocks. This way, you can save on hay or silage while recycling the manure and urine in the field itself. This will save you money and improve your land faster. 3, implement a short and correct mating and calving season. This is to achieve good body condition in your females without having to spend money. A female that gives birth in good body condition is easier to get pregnant than a female that gives birth in the dry season. Isn't that what we want? Produce more at a lower cost? If you have the bulls or rams or billies all year with the females, I recommend making the changes gradually so that it does not affect your cash flow. Well, that is all for today. See you the next time, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube, or join us for the weekly email at www.rwranching.com/join. Again, www.rwranching.com/join. Have a great day.